The first ring came from a number I didn't recognize. I let it slide to voicemail. The second buzzed my pocket 20 seconds later. I ignored that one too. By the time the seventh call cut through the quiet, my chest had tightened. The cadence of the phone, incessant, urgent, unforgiving, matched the beat in my throat. I wanted to pick it up. I wanted to answer, but I couldn't force my hand. I just stared at the glass and knew without glancing at the clock who it was. 139 missed calls. Her voice had been the only sound in my head since the night before, replaying itself until it drowned everything else out. Her words sliced through me, not sharp enough to make me flinch outwardly, but deep enough to burn on the inside. "You should be grateful I even dated you." She said it like a sentence that settled the account of us. I smiled then, small and controlled, as though it didn't matter. Inside, though the words smoldered, the room still felt like a replay of that evening. The warmth of the food under my fingertips, the aftertaste of a wine I'd chosen for her. It had been her birthday. I had arranged every detail, the light low and flattering, the menu chosen to impress. I had pictured the moment, a perfect scene for her friends to applaud. Instead, she stood suddenly, as if pulled by an invisible thread, and said, "I can't do this anymore." The words arrived oddly soft, like sound through a veil. Then she added that line about gratitude, and everything shifted. In an instant, I was irrelevant. Her friends, all those carefully curated people whose approval she clearly craved, rose and followed her out as if we were performing a scene from someone else's life. Laughter, crude and loud, filled the gap she left behind. I didn't join them. I sat there while the world rearranged without me. 15 guests, all of them polished and indifferent, walked away without a backward glance. I paid the bill, the full cost, every course, every bottle. Not because I was struck by a sudden act of generosity, but because it seemed the only thing to do. The humiliation stung. But my first reaction wasn't rage. It was the quiet, cold kind of curiosity that arrives when something familiar turns foreign. I needed to know how long this had been planned. Was the embarrassment staged? Had she quietly been building a case against me, rehearsing this departure like a performance? Or was I simply blind to the truth of her life all along? I did the only thing that felt like control. I began to gather proof. I wasn't interested in vindication as much as in clarity. I examined the messages on her phone, a routine I'd never considered necessary before. I sifted through notifications, through deleted threads, into the small, private exchanges that people leave behind when they think no one is looking. There under the layers was a text from a name I didn't recognize. "Can't wait to see you tonight." It was brief, ordinary on its face, but it landed like a stone. I read it over until its implications opened for me. It wasn't a casual note. It was a sign that whatever had been happening, it had a life beyond us. On Sunday morning, I walked into the kitchen carrying the thing that would change everything. I held the evidence steady in my palm. A DNA test result. The paper felt heavier than it was. I made breakfast the way she liked it. Light scrambled eggs, the kind that folded softly and left no trace of bitterness. I slid the envelope across the table and watched the color drain from her face as she opened it. Her fingers trembled. The quiet between us hummed louder than any of the calls that kept coming. "You knew," she breathed barely more than a sound. I nodded once, steady and unhurried, as if the nod itself closed a chapter. Her hands fluttered over the top of the paper, like someone trying to stop a wound from widening. She expected panic or pleading, perhaps a scramble for repair. Instead, there was a calm in me she hadn't seen before. I let her see the truth. I let her feel the collapse of her carefully assembled life. I didn't ask for explanations. I didn't demand confessions. I placed the final motion across the table as if setting down a cup. "I want a divorce," I said, my voice level and soft. She looked as if I'd thrown her into cold water. Her mouth opened and closed with the shape of things unsaid. But I raised a hand and stopped the tide before it rose. There was nothing left to untangle. The choice had been made in the hidden messages and the test results she hadn't imagined I would find. After that, I left. The world tilted for her. For me, it tilted away. The phone kept ringing. messages piled up in my inbox. And the day continued to spin on its ordinary axis for everyone else. She scrambled afterwards. Calls I ignored, explanations I refused to entertain. Her life, once so meticulously curated, lay in pieces she tried to sweep into neat piles. I didn't stay to watch the cleanup. I walked out with the same composed face that had gotten me through the restaurant. The same expression as I had when I set the envelope down that morning. There was no dramatic gesture, no grand speech. Just the quiet of someone who had already turned inward and discovered that the person they used to be was gone. I felt nothing and everything at once, hollow, strangely free, emptied of the version of myself that belonged to us. I was gone before she fully understood that I had left. And as the distance grew, the calls slowed, the messages became less frantic, in her world. The one she'd chosen over me hummed on. I didn't look back.